Jørgen, I'll start with you. The Norwegian salmon industry, where do you think we're at right now in terms of consolidation and what could potentially happen in 2021 in this current market?
I think from a Norwegian perspective that we have an excellent industry that has areas to produce in that is under close surveillance through those production areas that Norway is divided into the 13 production areas. And when we are talking about sustainability and how the Norwegian aquaculture industry will develop, it's all about really, doing the right things to make sure that you get rid of the sea lice issue, and that you are producing smart and also looking at the opportunities downstream. I think for Norwegian salmon farmers, they have shown a huge portion of resilience over time. And they are very well knit into the fabric of where they are placed. And they are not, call it greedy, in the sense that there is no place to be greedy in these smallish areas. So they are all about this fabric of building close-knit communities and evolving their business model. So where I think that they will go is downstream. And I think hopefully they will acknowledge more how important it is to understand their customers' movements. And for the major part, the Norwegian salmon is going to Europe. And what we see of downstream activities there is that the really good companies in the downstream segments, they understand the movements in the customer base very early on when we are into a pandemic like we have had just now and still are in, obviously. And I think these valuable traits to understand your customers and really make differences to the products is going to be more important going forward. So I see an investment going into the downstream segments. In addition to that, Matt, I want to make sure that, what we see from Norway is obviously a way of looking at how these big actors like the movies and the SalMar and the Griegs will trade when it comes to further expansion other places than Norway. And that's maybe part of the discussion going forward here. Ignacio, just to take that one step further also, in other protein segments, this has been the king, really understanding your customer base and, going deep into their, product innovation needs and things like that. I think from the outset, the Norwegian aquaculture industry have this opportunity to get stuck in, and some have. I mean, the Leroy and the movie is really, really deep into it. But on a broader scale, and what we see now during the pandemic, we have had prices between 40 and 60 kronos a kilo. And as a consequence, every Friday, there is kind of a tipping contest on how it's going to go. And subsequently, the momentum on the next few months, how that will develop. So I want to take out some of that risk had I been them. I think here we still are in the sweet spot on what kind of protein we are producing, and salmon is a fantastic protein. So my concern is really on marine infrastructure and planning, engineering, and really concluding on all these projects. There are 4 deliverables that needs to come into play when it comes to getting these projects off the ground, and those 4 are really getting the permits, getting the water rights, really doing the work on the sites, and looking at the angle. And I think as you are saying, Kjetil, regarding the time it will take before we have significant volumes in this market, it probably will take even more than 3 to 5 years.
Right, and Jørgen, one of the things I'm very keen to get. One of the first questions we've had from the outside is we saw this explosion of Norwegian projects, land-based projects, over the last few months, like a crazy amount of new projects. And then the other day, it seemed like the Norwegian government put brakes on that and stopped the special licensing scheme. I just wondered if you could kind of explain what's been going on and how that fits into what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit uncertain exactly what is meant by the question. But if you are looking at, the special projects outside of Norway, the so-called R&D projects, we have a lot of those projects granted by the Norwegian Fisheries Department, and many of those has, backers behind to actually make a reality. What we are seeing in Norway is there is 2 lobbies. Number one is the RAS development, and what we see there is that Norwegian investors is also taking that route in Norway, but most visible is the project that's going to be made close to the market. So they are also in the process of being listed, and there's a lot of media attention to those. And then there is the industry initiatives towards offshore farming. And what we see here is that the big players is really coming together, the SalMar and the Nordax and the others that have really fantastic projects on the bedding, and they have applied for the areas that they want to utilize, and SalMar was the latest one now to have that granted. So what we see is that, if the offshore farming is really taking off, there will be a huge, potential volume coming from offshore of Norway into this market as well. And we know SalMar as one of the leaders in this industry, and you can't take for granted then that the supply-demand balance will be in check, in tune. Things will pretty much happen on a larger scale. We're talking about bigger volumes.
Right. And so, Jørgen, you mentioned 4 deliverables. This is one of the questions from the outside audience for land-based RAS. And you mentioned permitting. What are the other 3 deliverables?
So we are talking about, area planning, really, marine infrastructure. So you really need to have an area that is suited for that type of installation. And then you need to have your strategy straight on really where you want to place your end product. Obviously, you want to have an edge. You want to have a story, a sustainability story behind what you're doing. And what we see is that that's going to be more and more important going forward to really, draw some benefits from aquaponics, for example, is a trending thing, that you are producing vegetables together with fish. You really need to have your story straight and the strategy behind it.
Yeah. Jørgen, we did a database last year on the land-based salmon farms, and we saw so many projects in Norway. I've been here before, but a little bit different. How much? I mean, obviously, clearly the expertise is really in Norway, isn't it? With some of the RAS technology. How do you think that will evolve? How does this storyline play out? Do we see Norwegian entrepreneurs going all around the world and building these things in New York and Shanghai? Obviously, we're already seeing that. Or do some of these projects in Norway actually get built, like the salmon evolutions? There's some really kind of, well-funded and well-managed projects out there? How does it play out?
It's an interesting question, and I think what we're looking at there is 2 or 3, roads ahead. Number one, the established players. They obviously are keeping their heads focused in on conventional production, but also understanding what's happening on the land-based side. And I think they will have, working groups looking at, if we're going to do it ourselves, how much capital do we need, where do we want to do it, and so forth. And you have to remember that these guys, they have the competence to do this from their previous history. And I also see that they can piggyback on post-smolt production in their own facilities out of Norway. You can easily develop a facility alongside a RAS or alongside a post-smolt production facility, and then grow it out to food size. So that's one opportunity. Another opportunity is like what Grieg is doing, and really, focusing in on areas and markets that they believe will be a winner for a RAS, like in Japan for Grieg. And I think many of the others would then go strategically on these markets and establish with, local players that they can work together with, that maybe have the opening to the markets directly. And then on the third side, I think from Norway, what we will see is that the farms that is active here and is in development, they will most probably be built, but it will maybe take some more time than what is the original plan. And that is what the limitation of this is all about. It's about the equipment, the planning, the work that needs to be done, the marine infrastructure, and then the competence, the people to really do it. So on that note, I think those 3 sort of strands of the ways will then determine how the Norwegian sector will react.
So one final, and I'll put this out to everybody. Just from Fishpool, which is obviously Salmon Futures Exchange, there's a question which is, how important will it be for external financial investors to secure income in a commodity that is volatile as salmon? And I guess some of these producers are volatile, but it would be interesting to get your thoughts on this. I'll put this question out to everybody and take it from there.
Well, I was lucky to sell Fishpool to Oslo Stock Exchange, and I thoroughly I'm really a supporter of the mechanism that you can go out there and hedge your risk. So to me, way to go, check out the forward curve and then do your betting really on what is needed to make sure you are making money.